Folks, this is Spruce and Studs, and welcome on in back to the channel. And today we're going to be reviewing something that I was kind of on the fence whether I wanted to review or not, but I decided, well, since I'm a content creator and it's my job to give you the best informed decision possible if you're actually on the fence of getting this. So what specifically are we going to be reviewing today? We are going to be reviewing the Ultramarines Primaris Inceptor squad. One thing that I actually wanted to see was whether the stand would actually hold the weight of the Inceptor squad. So that's one of the main reasons why I did it. Aside from the fact that I kind of am a completionist, so I've pretty much ordered most of the Ultramarines Primaris army offerings, minus like the intercessors and stuff. So I kind of wanted to see exactly where the Inceptors were in terms of quality. So without further ado, let's just dive right into the review. Opening the plastic wrapping right now. Okay. Box number one. Box number two. Box number three. All right, everyone, now we have Inceptor number one right in front of us, and let us see what's inside. So from what I can tell, these things don't have a lot of variation, and also in-game, they really don't have a lot of variation either. They just come with an assault bolter, and that's pretty much it. At least this one comes with the assault bolter. All right, let's take a look at this assault bolter and see what we got over here. You can see that there's some light highlights up here, which is good. I always love highlights, as you have known in all my prior videos. That's one of the biggest things I always say. Highlighting is very important because it makes your model pop out, especially if you're painting a miniature. There are a ton of weathering over here, which is awesome too. I like the used kind of gun look over here because these obviously are going to be used a lot in the universe of 40K. They're constantly at war, so it would make sense that this is a very used assault bolter. Now you see that there are some mold lines, and that's one thing that I don't think that any kind of manufacturer is going to be able to get rid of, but that's not a really big deal to me. And then let's look at the bolter casing. There are some bleed that's going on from the black onto the brass bolter shell right over here. And then the shading is a little bit uneven in my opinion too. As you can see, the shading should be, actually I don't think there actually should be shading around here, mainly because there are really no recesses or grooves over here. It just makes this kind of thing very dirty looking in my opinion. As we flip this around on the other side, there is some bleed also with this gunmetal casing onto the black casing of the assault bolter. But there, like I said, is a good amount of weathering over here, which I'm a big fan of. Let's take a quick look at assault bolter number two. And once again, it's more or less of the same thing. A lot of uneven shading going on here with the, I guess it's the bolter shield. And let's see if there's any painting issues over here. There might be some, but again, nothing to bother me about. And there's also some highlighting up top, which is a nice touch. Okay, now it appears that these things have grav chutes. Grav chutes are really cool, and it's supposed to slow this Inceptor's descent down. I wish they included this in the Reavers model, but they didn't. Maybe we can find some way to actually attach these to the Reavers. So you can see the grav chutes again. They're a little bit off, man, in my opinion. This is very dark in this area, which I don't think it really should be. It should be a lighter blue, in my opinion. And that's, I guess, the way that JoyToy is going right now. Most of their Ultramarines are very, very dark blue compared to their royal blue. Now let's look at the meat and potatoes of the whole entire model, which is of the Inceptor. So let's see what we have here. Obviously, there is a ton of shading that's going on, and that's what JoyToy is doing. They're doing more shading than highlighting on their current models. So you can see the shading in between the armor plates, which is nice. You can see there's some highlighting in between the armor plates over here. So on the pauldron, there is some bleed from the brass colored or the gold color onto the blue. which is a common thing that you find amongst JoyToy figures. There is a good amount of shading here, which is nice on the chest plate area. And then with the other pauldron, it appears that there also some bleed. Not a big deal. So as we look at the Space Marine's head itself, we find that there are not a lot of bleed issues. It's very nice. Everything's staying within the lines. The red is staying within the lenses. The blue is staying within the helmet. I suppose the only thing that I have said before, and I'll say again, I wish these lenses were a bit of more of a metallic reddish color. So as I paint these things in real life, what I do is I paint the lenses with an undercoat of like a silver color, and then I use like a contrast paint of red, so it makes the silver pop out. That's a quick way of doing it instead of gemming it. And then you have the belt over here that is super loose and of a very soft material. And then we have this tubing over here that attaches to the assault bolter that is very rubbery and very loose. So nothing to be said about that. So let's just attach the jump pack onto the back. Goes here as such. Very easy to do. And then with the assault bolters, what you need to do is to just attach this rubberized tubing to the tip over here. And then have the Space Marine wield his weapon of destruction. He's got his weapon wielded. And then we shall do the same for the other side. Same thing. Going to attach the assault bolter to the tubing to the back, and then make him wield his gun to purge the enemies of the Emperor. All right, and we have a fully armed and kitted out Inceptor Space Marine. And now we will move on to Space Marine number 2. All right, with Space Marine number 2, I'm not really going to focus too much on the painting, as well as going over the assault bolters. It's the exact same loadout. You have 2 assault bolters, and that's really it. You got the Gravis armor, as well as the Grav chutes and the jump pack itself. So what I want to try to focus on are the differences between the first figure and the other one. So obviously the first difference is this purity seal, and you have some nice shading that's going on in between the crevices here, and no highlighting on the purity seal, obviously. That's really it when it comes to the differences. They're really not that much to talk about, especially when the units are kitted out the same. But I really want to focus on is just right now, let's just say the range of motion for these models. So JoyToy has complete range of motion, obviously, and you're able to pose these things however which way you want to pose them. So you have 360-degree rotation of the shoulder, and you have a good amount of rotation with the elbow joint over here. It's about roughly a little bit more than 90 degrees maybe. So it allows you to pose this action figure however you want to pose. And the hands actually will rotate 360 like you see over here as well. The helmet area is obviously has a shorter range of motion, mainly because of the other things that are blocking the helmet, aside from the fact that this is a very chunky boy. Now with the leg area, there's also a good amount of motion over here. You can see you can bend the legs nearly all the way back, which is a fairly unnatural position, obviously. And then you can kick this thing almost all the way out. But Inceptors obviously aren't going to have a full range of motion anyways, because they're pretty much in this kind of configuration like this when they're in game. Okay, so we're going to attach these, I guess, grab chute flaps to the back of the backpack. So obviously you would just reattach this back to the back of the Space Marine when you're done with it, like so. The other thing that I really want to do is, let's just take a look at the, I guess this is like a blast shield. So this splash shield is of a very, very soft material that, if you're familiar with JoyToy products and Warhammer 40K, they use this material for the capes on the Librarian as well as the Gravis Captain. So it's very soft and very pliable. So I'm guessing that all you need to do is fit this part over the helmet. It's a little bit finicky to get this thing in. I believe that's exactly how this is supposed to go in. Now let's take a look at the base. The base is something interesting because I heard from my friends that this is probably the most wobbly part of the model inside of the 40K game. And I'm going to say that this is probably going to be the same. So this is the base that you're supplied, and you're supposed to just push this peg inside. And then from what I can tell, all you need to do is to push this part inside of this on the back. So, and this has a screw joint over here. So you're able to pose this however way you want it at different angles. This is obviously not a very natural angle, but this is typically the angle that you would want to pose the Space Marine in. So I'm going to say that this little peg here, when you fit into the back of the Space Marine, this is obviously not a model that you're going to want to play with on the stand, because if you jostle it or jiggle it or be really rough with it, I can see this part breaking. So this is a very, very brittle part, just like in the miniature stands. It is super brittle. It breaks very easily. There are mods that you do out there to prevent this from breaking, and I'm going to assume that if you're rough with this part, you're going to have to be doing the same. All right, folks, that's it for Space Marine number 2. Let's move on to the Sergeant of the squad. All right, here we have the Sergeant, folks, and the loadout is exactly the same as any Inceptor Space Marine that is out there. So you have your 2 assault bolters over here, this blast shield, these 2 grab chute flaps, and obviously your stand. So let's take a look at the difference between this Sergeant versus his normal counterparts. So when you're looking at the Ultramarines, this red helmet has the designation of a Sergeant. And let's take a look at the painting here of the Sergeant itself. You have some mispainting that's going on over here with the silver probably from the hoses onto the red of the helmet. It looks like there are some slight painting issues where the green of the lenses did not cover completely where it should be covering. Some bleed issues again with the red onto the skull. But if you look at it from afar as the backpack falls, you are not going to tell that much of a difference, and you're pretty much going to be viewing these things probably from a display case or at a distance. So nothing to be bothered about, and this is typically what we would expect from JoyToy anyways. You have the left pauldron over here that designates this as a Sergeant unit, and then you have your Primaris seals down here. Again, you have some nice shading that's going on over here. Nice shading that's in between the purity seals, what makes the model stand out a little bit more. The Inceptors really don't have that much variety in the game, so it kind of translates to the action figures. You just have your assault bolters. The only other armament that they have are the plasma exterminators that you can swap out for the assault bolters. Obviously, JoyToy did not supply us with those. Maybe on a later model, they'll consider doing that. But again, we're just stuck with the assault bolters here. So that's pretty much it for the Sergeant. All right, folks, just to wrap up, what do I think about these Inceptors? These Inceptors are just shockingly close to the Games Workshop miniatures. That's one thing I will never, ever fault JoyToy on. Their attention to detail to all these models are just absolutely phenomenal with their accuracy and the representation of the Warhammer 40K universe. I just love how true to form JoyToy is with every single one of these renditions of the models. Now, I wish that there was some sort of variety with the armaments. Like I said, I wish that they could have supplied us with the plasma exterminators, but obviously that's not the case. But regardless, there are still some painting issues that you will find pretty much across the board with every single JoyToy model. Just saying that you have a lot of bleed from this area on the pauldron to the normal blue areas. That's a common thing. More often than not, you have some bleed that goes from the lenses onto the helmet or vice versa. The highlighting, again, is fairly lacking and not present on any of these later models, where it's predominantly hyper shaded, which I'm not really that much of a fan of. But if you look at these things from afar as you're seeing right now, these are absolutely gorgeous models, and I really, really like them. So this is Brews and Studs, and I hope you enjoyed this review. Please make sure to follow my channel as we do a ton of JoyToy model reviews, and I will keep doing them because I love these action figures so much. And I also will be doing some preview videos where we can see some upcoming releases later down the pipeline. So thank you all for your support. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.